In this lecture, we will compare and contrast quantitative and qualitative methods so that you can have some general understanding about how these two types of research methods differ from each other before we delve into details for each. As we learned previously, one major difference between quantitative and qualitative methods is they represent different research paradigms. A research method is just like a tool. Different methods are used to solve different problems. If you want to put a nail into the wall, you need to use a hammer, and no matter how sophisticated other tools look like, they won't be as effective. And this class is designed to equip you with a wide range of research tools so that you'll be equipped to solve a variety of research problems, whether for your scholarly research in your senior seminar thesis project or proprietary research in your future professional careers. More specifically, quantitative methods are typically used by researchers from the positivistic research tradition. Quantitative scholars use numbers or quantities to tell stories. They rely on instruments such as survey questionnaires or experiments to collect numerical data. The assumption is reality, whether it's your psychological or emotional states, or human behaviors, or social practices, can be objectively observed and measured using scientific and systematic procedures. The goal is often to describe general patterns and predict differences or relationships. For example, in the kindness of strangers study, the researcher wanted to test differences in helpfulness across dozens of countries. How did he collect data? He coded the number of people who exhibited helpful behaviors within a fixed amount of time in a variety of experiments. On the other hand, qualitative scholars, used primarily by interpretive and critical scholars, do not use numbers, but collect qualitative data from observations, interviews, or texts, and they focus on meanings in their analysis. The underlying assumption is our experiences are social and subjective. For example, in the Heartbroken in Half study, different people may have very different perceptions about street gangs in Chicago, depending on where their perceptions came from. Interpretive and critical scholars believe that we cannot fully understand reality unless we take all these diverse perspectives into consideration. The goal of qualitative researchers, therefore, is to provide an in-depth, contextual understanding of the chosen phenomenon. And in Heartbroken in Half, the researcher actually moved into the neighborhood to experience firsthand the living conditions of the gang members, as well as their communication systems, values, relationships, and sentiments toward each other. We also learned that quantitative and qualitative research follows different research process models. Quantitative research is deductive, and qualitative research is inductive. What does it really mean? First, if you take a look at the process model for quantitative research, it's very much a linear process. Researchers develop hypotheses or research questions based on their goals and theories from existing literature. They then design their instruments or experiments to collect data, and finally they analyze data and write up reports based on the analysis. If anything is wrong with their research design, they may have to redo all the data collection and analysis. And for their findings to be generalizable to a broader population, they randomly select participants to collect data. On the other hand, qualitative research is inductive because the different research stages can be interdependent and nonlinear. For example, researchers formulate broad research questions based on their purposes in existing literature, but as they collect and make sense of data from observations, texts, or interviews, they are also open to new research questions. In other words, Their research cannot be entirely planned ahead of time, and unlike quantitative research, which analyzes aggregated data only after all the data are collected, qualitative researchers often begin to have initial analysis of data while they collect data. And since their goal is not to make generalizations but to obtain an in depth understanding, their research questions often target a specific and purposefully selected group of participants. Finally, to produce generalizable results, quantitative research removes some level of contextuality. For example, in Liu's 2009 negotiation study, participants were asked to do a job offer negotiation. As we all know, different companies may have different rules or norms regarding the negotiability of different issues, but the experiment in the study was designed in a way to control such differences so that the effects found can only be attributed to differences in emotions or culture. It was a laboratory study rather than based on negotiations in real life settings. The quality of quantitative research has a lot to do with the reliability and validity of their measures and experiments, and the research report must be written in a way to report and discuss these matters. And since qualitative research seeks in-depth understanding of a chosen phenomenon, it is deeply contextualized, which means the context in which communication occurs for participants is taken into full consideration. Qualitative research collects data based on interaction in naturalistic settings, whether obtained from observations or interviews or media. And since the researcher is the tool, and it is the researcher's interpretations of the findings that guide theory development, the credibility of the research analysis is very important. And there are various ways of improving credibility, which we'll learn later in the semester.